alaikum. Welcome to ISLAM, the Islamic Society of the American Muslims, an organization founded to teach people the true and peaceful message of Islam and to empower those who were born into Islam and those who came to Islam. We were just having a conversation up here about how difficult it is sometimes to assimilate into our communities. And we're talking about the difficulty of second generation children. And what we found after we started our organization is that people came and said, "I'm sorry, you're doing the same thing that the masses are doing. You're creating division." This is not my intention. And they would say, "Well, I was born into the religion, but sometimes I don't feel like I belong because maybe I didn't practice." And I started coming to the masjid, and then people were not very warm to me. They were critical of me. So we're here. We have a policy here. There's a no judgment zone. I don't like Planet Fitness because they stole my line. I had a no judgment zone long before Planet Fitness ever opened. If anybody criticizes you here, let me know, and I'll beat them up in the parking lot. We don't tolerate that. I am just kidding for the sake of the camera. I don't beat anybody up. No violence. Okay. But alhamdulillah, that's what we're all about. We welcome you here. Is anybody here for the first time today? Please introduce yourself if you don't mind.
My name is Jessica Alston. I'm here for the first time.
Jessica. All right, mashallah. How did you hear about us?
A friend of mine, Samir.
Samir, very good. Well, we're very happy you're here. Fellowship with these ladies and get telephone numbers, and you're in the right place. If you're looking for a supportive environment, then you're in the right place. And if they don't support you, let me know. All right.
Now she's scared of you.
No, I promise, nothing to be afraid of here. Okay, alhamdulillah. I just want to start out today by letting people, yes, you guys are here for the first time. You came to Goldenrod years ago, that's right.
That's still new here, though.
Yeah, but you're new to us, and why don't you just tell us your name, if you don't mind, so that everybody knows your name. Saraya Ridwan. Aisha Ridwan. And Sarah's already been here before. They're all sisters. And
Renee Chacon.
Renee Chacon.
Second time.
Right. So everybody knows everybody. Very good. Very good. I wanted to start out today, before we get into the subject matter of Zakat, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about how your Ramadan is going. Anybody who wants to share anything about the Ramadan? And I'll begin to make it a little easier, soften it for people. As you know, because of my stroke and various health conditions, I've not been able to actually fast from food and water this year. And that's the first time in 24 years, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. And at first I was really, really sad about that. I was actually depressed about it. I couldn't imagine not fasting, because I love to fast. And all the things in Islam, I love to fast because it really demonstrates for me the ability to control my extremities, that to control my lower self, my desires, my powers. And so all my years when I would teach at colleges, I would say that there's 3 levels of fasting. There's the fasting where you don't eat and drink, and then there's the fasting where you fast your extremities, so you don't look at the Victoria's Secret billboards when you're on I-4, you don't gossip, you don't swear, you don't slander, you don't exaggerate, and so you fast this senses, basically. And the highest level of fasting is when you fast your thoughts. Now, I don't want to put myself on any pedestal at all, because I certainly haven't achieved the goal. But I always prayed that one day I would fast my thoughts. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to be careful what you pray for, created that opportunity, because more than ever this month I'm trying to fast how I think, what I think. And it's quite amazing because the whole focus has been to be operating from my heart and from my fitra. And I talked about this at the potluck for the last 2 weeks. I expounded on it again. And there's one verse in the Holy Quran that says that we're not supposed to let that fitra be corrupted. Yes. Fitra is your natural self, your essential self. What happens is that 40 days into gestation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathes into your mother's womb your soul, your ruh. The Spirit of God is actually breathed into your womb. And so this verse from Surah Al-Rum, which is the 30th surah, if I remember correctly, and I believe the 30th verse, it actually says that you should never change that original condition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you. Now let's think about that a minute. It's powerful. 85% of all babies come out of their mother's womb like this. And what does that look like, folks?
Praying sujood.
It looks like sujood. It looks like when you go and you bow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So 85% of the babies, according to my research, actually come out of the womb praising God. We know that the Quran says that all of the heavens and all of the earth praise God. They're just doing it. We also know that the Quran says that there was a meeting of all the souls before we were ever created. And all the souls testified that they would bear witness to one God. We also know from experience that if a person says, I'm an atheist, and they hit their thumb with a hammer, what will they say?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. They will immediately, that fitra, that instinctual self, that essential self, will cry out to God. So, if you can operate from that space in the month of Ramadan, then your experience in the month of Ramadan and what you will get out of Ramadan will be so much more superior than if you just are hungry and thirsty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, I don't need that. So in modern day, we say, nobody got time for that. Allah said, I don't need you to be hungry and thirsty. I need you to purify yourself. And over and over and over in the Quran, it tells us to purify ourselves. And what it means is that that perfect state that you were born in, because as Muslims we do not believe in the original sin. You were not born in sin. You were born absolutely perfect. You did not know how to steal. You did not know how to lie. You did not know how to curse. You did not know how to backbite, front bite, side bite, slander. You didn't know how to exaggerate. You did not know how to do any of those things when you were born. But you watched other people. And you watched your little cousins and he got away with it or she got away with it. You said, I think I can try that. And then it became a habit for you. And you started corrupting yourself. And then you would see the angels as a little child. And you would tell your parents, or you would tell somebody, oh, I saw angels. And they'd say, oh, not stupid. And then they would corrupt that Spirit of God within you. Because children do see angels. They're so pure they can still see them. So I just want you to think about that as you're traveling through this month of Ramadan, that if you can keep your focus that I don't want to corrupt this perfect self that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you. He actually created you in ihsan, which means spiritual perfection or spiritual completeness. So you came out of your mother's womb, this perfect little being, and now I want to go back to that. I want to re-achieve that, and that's powerful. And I do really, really well, and then the ego steps in, the I, and I get fear. Like somebody the other day was backing a truck up, and I had just pulled out of a stop sign. And the truck was coming at me like an army tank. And all of a sudden the fear and the I came in. Oh my God, what's he doing to me? And it became personal, not spiritual. And so the man gets out of his car to blow me out because he was backing into me. Of course, I got a little off-center. You notice how I said off-center? So what are you talking about? You're the one that's backing up. I just pulled out of the stop sign. You're almost hitting me. So I say that to say, yes, I'm real, I'm human. Guys, if you don't believe you can touch me, I'm actually real. So I am not perfect, but I'm striving. And I hope that all of you and bring that focus into your heart this month of Ramadan. That I want to go and be as pure as I was when I came out of Ramadan. It's amazing. So that's really what's been special for me this Ramadan, is I've had those moments. There's moments where I was so aware that I was struggling with the superficial eye, that wants instant gratification versus that essential self. That Spirit of God that is in me that I want to respond to. So who would like to share any of their Ramadan experiences? It can be a challenge, it can be positive. Anything you'd just like to share? And I don't want everybody to
That's, I'm always.
Antonio raised his hand.
Yes, Antonio, I'm sorry. Please, brother.
No, cause it's like I want to say it, but the reason I don't is because I feel like with me personally, especially now when I do something good, I keep it to myself. But I will share something that happened yesterday. I went to Big Lots because I wanted to buy an entertainment center for my new TV, and I see this guy holding up a sign saying any help, anything will help. You know, money, food, or whatever. And I had been fasting, of course, and it's like I'm hungry, I'm starving, and it's like I now know what he feels like. And so I did like this big, like, separate little grocery shopping for him, I guess you can say. And so when I left, I just handed him this bag with like $20 in there, and he couldn't really speak or whatever, but he was like, God bless you, and I was like, God bless you too, you know. But it's like I only know what he felt like because I was fasting, but I don't know what he feels like because I've never been in his shoes. But for like
So this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I fasted last year, but you know, this year was the first time I guess it hit me. And when I saw him, I was like, you know, right now I'm hungry, I'm really hungry, but this is how he feels all day, every day. So, you know.
And that is part of the reason that we fast, to relate to those that don't have. And it's amazing, you know, the beauty of that is when the Quran talks about light upon light, in the next verse, after that verse 30 in Surah Al-Rum, he talks about light upon light. And that light upon light is that you came into the world full of light. I mean, there's nothing more enlightening than a baby, right? When you look at that baby, they're just full of light and purity and just absolute, what is it called when you're unsoiled?
Pure
What is it? Innocence, that's what I was looking for. There's just some innocence there. And so, actually somebody else, one of my daughters said that they came by somebody, they're fasting, and they came and saw somebody was hungry, and they did the same thing. They just gave them lots of food. And that's beautiful, because that light upon light in that next verse is your faith in action. So the light that Allah, the nur of Allah that He put into you when He fills you with it, puts His ruh into you. When you act upon that faith, that's light upon light. Light upon light. So what Antonio rather is saying is light upon light. So he is actually implementing his faith. And that's the whole idea. You know, if you go through the month of Ramadan and you're just hungry, you're just thirsty, you never really do any extra good deeds, it's not exactly light upon light. It's hunger upon light and thirst upon light. So you really want to do as many good deeds as you can. Anybody else like to share before we get into Zakat? An experience they've had? Yes.
It's this Ramadan, I decided because you talked about this before we actually started fasting, the pre-planning part of it, and I was able to literally go through every single one of my closets, cabinets, the entire apartment to make sure that I did all the projects that I wanted to do and got rid of all the extracurricular things that would get in the way of me fasting. And for the first time, this is only the second time in my life, and I'm 44 years old, that I would have honestly started to stay on track with my Quran reading. And I'm actually a day ahead, and I made it a point, no matter what was on my plate that day, that I was not going to let that fall behind. If anything, I was going to get it forward. And one of my many goals that I wanted to accomplish for Ramadan was being more patient and not really focusing on reacting, and then just calm down and respond. So I have, on rare occasions where I've been tested, on actually many occasions, have managed to stay focused, and that's really helped me a lot.
Anybody else, one more person like to share about any experience you had in this month? Yes, please.
Yeah, one of the things that, you talked about originally when setting goals was not to be in conflict with family members. Me and his sister disconnected maybe 20 years ago over an issue. And so I called her up the other day and asked her forgiveness for what I had done 20 years ago. And that was a good feeling for both of us. So getting closer to my family members, which I've been disconnected from for a long, long time. That was good.
That's light upon light again. You see, when you obey, when you hear and obey, that's what Islam means. When we talk about Islam means surrender or submission to God, that is submission. When the Quran says that in the month of Ramadan, it specifically says it, it's a specific verse, you should try to make any amends with anyone that you had conflict with, light upon light. What do you think light upon light means to you in terms of an individual in your spiritual growth?
What does it mean?
Yeah. Just in the literal sense, what does light upon light mean?
Like a relationship of some kind?
You're getting closer to Allah?
Yes, getting closer to Allah, but in the literal sense, if I shine a spotlight upon this board, and then I take another spotlight and I shine it in the same place, how much light will I have?
It's two things serving like the same purpose.
Yeah, but I'll have twice as much light. Pardon me? You'll have Nur An. That's my wife's name, twice light. Yes, you'll have Nur An.
That's what it means, bro.
Anybody else want to share before we get started with the cop? I'm sorry, Renee, to repeat this, but Renee and the girls and I were having a conversation about the beauty of Islamic finances. And next year, I think I'm going to try to do a couple of classes to remind me of that, about the principles of Islamic financing. Because it's really interesting when we talk about being in a world of illusions, the banks who have the tallest buildings in the world, they will tell you that, oh, of course it's a win-win situation if you participate in this. Yeah, it's a win-win for all the banks because they have the tallest buildings in the world. And they will have you believe that after you buy a house for $100,000 and you sell it for $300,000, but you paid $300,000 because you got to add up that interest and principal, that you made money. It looks like you made money if you're deluded, but in reality, the majority of people do not win.
They made money.
So they made the money, and that's why they can have the tallest buildings in Orlando. When you are riding on 408, what do you see? You see Bank of America. You see their towers. You see Fifth Third.
SunTrust?
You see Wells Fargo, don't you? Well, you see all these tall buildings. Sorry, I didn't mean to give a plug to those banks. So let's talk about Zakat. What is Zakat? One of the 5 pillars of Islam, right? Which one is it? Third pillar of Islam. Okay. Let's look at the reason for our existence first, from Surah 67. Blessed is he in whose hand is the dominion, and he is able to do all things, who has created death and life, that he may test you, which of you is best in deed. And he is the Almighty, the all-forgiving. What deed are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk specifically about the deed of giving. The deed of giving your money, surplus. But in the month of Ramadan, as we've heard people share today, the beauty of their deed, their good deed, that light upon light, is the spiritual growth that comes out of that. The fact that you get closer to Allah. What is the vision statement for the month of Ramadan? I prescribe fasting that you might obtain God consciousness, taqwa. So the more light there is, the more conscious you are of God. The more you act on that which you know, the more conscious you will be of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Successful indeed are the believers. Truly, to a happy state shall attain the believers. Those who humble themselves in their prayer, and who turn away from all that is frivolous, and who are intent on inner purity. Well, the word zakat, as we're going to see, is the way that we purify our wealth. The whole purpose of Zakat is a way to purify your wealth. So I'm going to sort of break it down in some simple terms. Let's just say that I happen to have a car dealership. And a drug dealer comes along and he buys a car from me. Is the money that he bought that car with clean?
No.
No. But it is going to commingle with my clean money? It is. So a way for me to purify my wealth, knowingly or unknowingly, the dirty money, is to give zakat. And that's sort of a nice way to think about it. But if you look at this again, when it says turning away from all that is frivolous, I want to expound on this because I've been talking a lot lately about the ego, the I, the lower self. And the lower self really and truly is all about frivolity. If you think about it in terms of eternity. If you think about the fact that you have this spiritual soul that has the ability to inherit paradise where you will have mansions and just, you think about it and it will just manifest itself for you. Then doesn't that make a BMW sort of frivolous or a Mercedes? It just puts it in a whole different perspective, doesn't it? There's nothing wrong with having a BMW or a Mercedes. As long as you're coming from the right heart of having that vehicle. Your heart's right before God. If your fifth is right before God. But if it's the I that you're serving, then what is that car?
Your ego?
It's your ego, but what is it ultimately? What do you serve? God. You serve your ego, or that became a God for you? So there are people that have heart attacks and strokes amassing wealth because they are serving the what? The ego, the world. They want the world to be pleased with them. So I've got to keep up with the Joneses. That's what we used to say. Patty knows that. Oh, say it. She's a Southern girl. So to keep up with the Joneses means that the Joneses are who you worship. To impress your neighbors means that your neighbors are who you want to serve. Jesus Christ said you can only serve one master. That's what it says in the Bible. You can only have one master. So putting things in perspective during hardships, during times of hardships, in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second Surah of the Holy Quran, in verse 155, and certainly we shall test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives, and fruits. But give thanks or give bad tidings to the asabarin, and that's the patient one. Sabr is patience in Arabic, so the sabarin are those who are patient. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Ankabut, which is the 29th Surah of the Holy Quran, does man think he will attain to faith by mere words? La. Generic means no. I tested them before time, and I will test them now to see who is the true among the false. So when we are tested with fear, hunger, loss of wealth, we lose a loved one, or fruits, those things that we work so hard for fall by the wayside. If we say faith comes by being tested, more light comes into my life when I'm tested and I overcome that test. So when we look at tests, we see another verse in the Quran that says that we praise God in adversity and prosperity. So when we think that we're in adversity, when we think that we're being really, really tested, in actual fact, we're receiving a gift from Allah. Sometimes we'll say the shaitan did that. We give the shaitan credit for tests that maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us. Because he said, you cannot attain to faith, you cannot attain to iman without being tested. So let me ask you something. How many people think that you would grow in your faith if you were never tested? If you just got everything you wanted. Nobody? Okay. We got one in the class that thinks if she got everything she wanted, she'd be saved.
Oh, I'm afraid of yours.
What? There's no temptation, just follow the path.
Yeah, but it makes you want more and more.
Don't you think you might get deluded?
What do you mean?
Deluded by the world? For example, the world tells you that if you want to be sexy, you got to use crest, right?
But that's a test. That's part of the test.
So can you repeat that again about the?
If you want to be sexy, you got to use crest.
Well, that's true.
Is that right? Toothpaste.
Oh, that
So,
would be fun.
yeah. So the point I'm making here is, how does that motivate you? What is that appealing to? Is that appealing to the essential self, the Spirit of God within you, or is it appealing to the ego? Ego. So the more that the world presents to your ego, if you are not tested and focused on the essential self, don't you think you might get off the wrong with Mr. King?
Well, the thing is,
The straight path.
Would
Sorry.
it depend on how you would receive this gift if you thought all this good stuff was coming from Allah? Would that not be appropriate?
Well, if you see all your good stuff is coming from Allah, but I guess maybe I didn't do a good job of explaining this. I'm talking about coming from your desires, your lower self. So if you got everything you desire,
When would it end though? If you got everything that you desired, when would it end?
do you think you would need God if you got everything?
but the
you
thing is,
need?
if there's no test, right, the desire just ends there. Like, everything is, going smoothly. You don't diverge away from the path.
But as quick as it came to you, it can be taken away.
Right, but then that's the test. So now without that, then
I think she's
Without that-
thinking like you're always getting throughout the rest of her life she's gonna get what she wants and that's just gonna be the end of it.
Yeah.
She doesn't realize one day
But if there's no test,
the
right?
big bad baker might come and say, "I need your car." It's like
See, I
No,
agree with
that's
the
fine.
sister. I think if you're receiving, if you have no desires and it comes to you, and you ask, when does it stop? Well, it stops when all of your desires are met, obviously. So then, I think that would reaffirm your faith and say, hey, this gift came from Allah, so I'm blessed.
Very good. Let me ask you this: where do desires come from? Most desires.
Ego.
Ego. If you are serving the ego, who is your God?
Materialism.
Materialism. Does that help clarify it a little bit? In other words, if you are working, what were you born? Who were you born to serve? Allah
Allah.
said, "I created men and jinns for nothing except
Serve Allah.
they serve me." So if you're serving the world, the press advertising, the ego that wants, if that's what you're serving, you have a vested interest in this problem. Am I making sense now? Does that clarify it at all, or you still disagree with me?
Well, the thing is, you said test, right? So, test and desires are kind of different. If you're, like, I just want a car that'll take me from one spot to the next without breaking down, without, something that's reliable. That's my desire. Rather than, I want a BMW brand new next year, I want something new. So, if that my desire is, it's like food, shelter, the necessities of life, and I get those and it's not being tested and taken away or any hardship that comes to it, I think it would make it easier to.
But you're saying that your desires do not grow, because envy is part of that ego, is to envy what others have and to be striving to keep getting more of the dunya.
But if you don't have that test, the test of envy, then you wouldn't.
But that's
Let me
part
go
of your
back.
lower ego, though.
Right, but that's part of the
Let me
test.
take it to another level.
Oh, let's rewind this real quick. This is some good
Yeah.
TV.
Let me take this to another level. This is actually not reality TV. I'm just kidding. Everything in Islam is based on your niyyah, your intention. So we have to preface all the thoughts that we just had based on your intention. So if my intention is to have a BMW so that the neighbors go, wow, he is so successful, I mean, he is the bee's knees, man. He's just got it all going on. if my niyyah, if my intention is to have stuff, and I am working to get that stuff, I am serving that stuff, that is a problem spiritually, because I am not purifying the heart. Because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that if you give a man one mountain of gold, he will want another mountain of gold. If you give him a second mountain of gold, he will want a third mountain of gold. So I think you brought up a very good point. You have to be very careful to operationally define terms, because there's a difference between test and desires. Definitely. So that's a great point you made there. Yes.
Okay, this is like a little off the subject, and please forgive me for the question I'm about to ask. Like, if anybody wants to put earmuffs, now's the time. But when you say this thing about looking successful with ego and this, that, and the other, like, if you're, I'm gonna not ask this. It's like kind of
Plain
embarrassing.
English will work.
Just say it. We don't judge. Say it.
Okay, what if, I'm interested in a gal, okay? And I have to ask her dad. I'm just giving an example. I don't want him to see like I'm like poor, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna invite him over to my house, and you know, and
There's
like I don't,
an amount of wisdom.
because he's not gonna want his daughter with somebody who's like not
If you're going to
successful.
go ask a man for his daughter, you probably don't want to go up there in a 1958 Volkswagen that the fender's falling off.
Yeah,
And that's
what I meant. I mean,
because he's going to say, well, if he can't drive a car better than that, he can't take care of my daughter. There's some wisdom there. But where we go back to, the point I'm trying to make here is, what is your niyyah? In the world in general, if my niyyah is I've got to pull up in that parking lot of that masjid in a 700 series BMW, because 300 is not good enough.
750.
That's not good enough.
750.
I've got to be in the 700 range.
but look how excited we're getting on the BMWs here. I mean, it's like we all just failed pretty much.
Or I could say a 500 Mercedes. The real point that I want to make here, first of all, we have to know what our intention is. Is there anybody here that would be willing to raise their hand that they have made a purchase before in their life based on show?
I think everyone would have to.
Yes.
I'm guilty.
Based on the
Based on
lower
show.
desire to serve what somebody else's judgment is going to be. See, the only person that I'm concerned about judging me is Allah. I really don't care what anybody else thinks. Now, I do care that I practice Islam in front of other people, because it is my mission to be a da'i. But in terms of their judgment that I'm cool or I'm successful because I have an $85,000 car payment that they think I own, there's a problem with that. That's a delusion. Does that make sense at all?
But
Yes. Hold on. She had her hand up first, and I'll come back to you. This has obviously pushed the real button for some people.
Generally speaking, anytime I personally see anyone driving a Mercedes or a BMW, which I consider luxury cars, I am like, whoa, wonder what they do for a living, because I need to work with wherever they work. Because there is a certain level of status quo when you see someone driving. It could be a car that they've been given. But immediately that's it's a judgment.
And I want to put a caveat here that's important before I come back to you. There is nothing wrong with a BMW or a Mercedes.
No.
Please don't
Not at all.
misunderstand. If anybody here is driving a BMW or Mercedes, please, we're not attacking you. The lesson
for sale, cheap.
the lesson is this, that no matter what you do in life, your purpose is to serve Allah. And whenever you make a decision, you have to ask yourself, is this corrupting me, my Islam, or is this building my Islam? And if you, as a Muslim, are borrowing $85,000 to buy a car when you can get a brand new car, 0% interest, then you are corrupting your fitrah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. And that's how simple it is. There's not even an argument in that term. I came into this world perfect. And I want to go back to that. So now Allah says don't participate in riba. So I decide I've got a good credit score. Riba is interest.
Interest.
Okay? I decide now, just because I want to be cool and I want to look good, I'm going to go and I'm going to pay $85,000 for a car. And I've been a Muslim for 25 years now. Is that going to make sure that I don't corrupt that pure self that I was born with? You think that might fly in the face if I'm paying interest?
I mean,
Of course it is, because it's haram to pay interest. It's haram. The hadith, and this is not about interest, the hadith says that 1/10 cents is what it's equivalent to in the Arabic. A riba is like sleeping with your mother. Does that bring it home a little bit now? Does that help a little bit?
You do want to say those people that do have interest that prior to Islam or
Those people that have interest prior to Islam, what you don't know, you're not responsible for. The essence of what we're trying to talk about, folks, if the shoe fits, wear it, is ego. Because we've gotten a little bit, this has gone, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I sort of think it's gone way out.
well,
Because what we're trying to talk about is Islamic principles of finance here. Islamic principles of finance is that you don't participate in interest, except if you're buying a home, because that's a necessity. Some scholars will say a car is a necessity. But unless you are making big money, is it a necessity for you to drive an $85,000 car when you can buy a perfectly good car that will get you from A to B and back to A for $30,000? You know within yourself, and it can be different for every single person in this room, what does that do to your heart and what does it do to your essential nature? Does it take you closer to Allah or does it take you away from Allah? Does that expound? Does that help a little bit better? It's not about there's any hard and fast black and white here, except the only black and white, hard and fast, is interest is haram. And no scholar will tell you it's not, except in the United States of America, they will tell you it's okay to buy a home because that's a necessity. Let's say that I'm a school teacher earning $40,000 a year. And I've got a good credit, $40,000. Good luck, right? I decide that I make $40,000 a year and I've got a good credit score, so I want to go to this brand new development because I've always wanted to live near the masjid and I'm going to buy a $400,000 home. I have to look at why I'm earning $40,000. I want a $400,000 home with, about a $4,000 payment a month. Just do the math. I have to look at my intention of why I want it. Does everybody understand where I'm coming from? Yes, sister.
But they do offer like Islamic home financing, which I
Wells
did.
Fargo does. They offer Islamic financing.
Yeah, but it's the same thing because that's what I did. You're just basically paying them rent and they'll pay the bank, but they'll charge you a little bit more.
Yeah, that's also
And I don't want to get.
Huh?
I want to get back to
That's
the
what
subject.
I'm
I want to get back to the subject matter. Yes, there is Islamic financing, and I'll just say it this way for me personally. I made that mistake too one time. If you want to go that route, it's all about your intention. It's all about your intention.
Wait, but I'm saying,
If I can get a rate from a bank for 2%, and I've got to pay an Islamic company 3.75, then to me that's just a matter of wisdom. If the scholars have said I can buy a home in this country because it's a necessity, then I'm going to buy a home for my family because I've got to pay rent. I might as well be investing that money in something that I can have maybe some collateral eventually. That's the principle. That is a win-win for me. Anything before we move on?
I want to say one more thing. I feel bad because I know you're trying to move on. So I can sidebar with you later if you want.
Yeah, I would like to cover this because it's important.
That's fine. Yeah, I can sidebar. I'll ask you later.
Yeah, well, I can see that we definitely need a whole class on Islamic principles of financing, without a doubt. Okay, let's talk about Zakat again. Now, if God were to take men at once to task for whatever wrong they commit on earth, He would not leave a single living creature upon its surface. This is a very powerful verse. But when their term comes to an end, in other words, when they die, then verily they come to know that God sees all that is in the hearts of his servants. In other words, when we talk about our walk with the law, we are supposed to worship Allah as if we see him. And worship Allah knowing that he always sees us. And this goes back to that Islamic financial principle. Knowing that Allah is absolutely watching us every second of the day. And if we were thinking that Allah is watching us, and I'm going to use this example. How many people here, now I want you to show your hands, were ever guilty of being on the computer and looking at something that you knew your parents did not approve of? And as soon as you heard the footsteps of your parents coming to the door, you hit that little red X at the top right-hand corner. Or your husbands maybe, or your wives. Yes, Sister Pam.
I did that this morning.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is that when, I just love you for your honesty.
I was on Southwest.com. That's all I was doing. But I knew he wouldn't want me to be looking at where I can travel.
But now think about it. Think about it. Can I play?
Yeah.
Can I role model with you with that? Patty had a fear. Her ego feared what her husband would say if she wasn't spending money that I'm guessing you don't have, right? Or you got the money.
We have the money, but he
I'm
doesn't
coming
want
to
me to
lunch
spend
today.
it.
So they got the money. But husband doesn't want to spend it. Now, if I was thinking for a minute that Allah is watching me spending money that my husband thinks we shouldn't spend right now, I have to know the details of that, right? Right? So does everybody get where I'm coming from, though? If our spiritual self is intact, we will live our life knowing that Allah is always watching us. So when we get in the car and we turn on a certain song, and it is saying vulgarities, slandering women, and by the way, the Holy Quran, one of the biggest sins in the whole of Islam is to slander a woman. It's actually recommended that a man get 80 stripes for slandering a woman. That's how esteemed women are in our religion. So if you got in your car and your consciousness is that God hates slandering women, and you listen to a song that is demeaning women, what would you do if you're God conscious?
Turn it off.
You turn it off. You see, a lot of times, children have more fear for their parents than they do God. Very sad. Because we don't teach them, you want to fear Allah, you don't want to fear me. Amazing. So let's look at this verse again in light of what I'm trying to say. Now, if God were to take men at once to task for whatever wrong they committed on the earth, he would not leave a single creature upon its surface. You see, Allah is so merciful that he's not taken us to task for all the things that we do wrong. And there's a beautiful hadith, and I can't remember if I put this in the slide or not. It says that if the animals understood this verse, they would be so nervous in fear of Allah that we would not even want to, we'd all be vegetarians. We wouldn't even want to eat the meat because it wouldn't have any fat on it. It wouldn't actually grow. It would be so lean, it wouldn't be worth our trouble to eat it. That's sort of the essence of that hadith. Pretty powerful. So if you can put that in your own terms, that Allah is watching everything that you do. If he were to take us to task for the sins that we commit on earth, he wouldn't leave a single creature living here. But when the term comes to an end, when we actually die, we will come to know, because we're going to be given our scroll, that Allah watched everything that we did. Now, whatever calamity may befall you on Judgment Day will be an outcome of what your own hands have wrought. Although he pardons much, and you cannot elude him on earth, and you will have none to protect you from God in the life to come, and none to bring you succor, which means nourishment. Succor is nourishment. In other words, anybody here ever worked in a tobacco field besides me? Patty, you ever suckered tobacco? Suckered tobacco is a little flower on the top of the tobacco plant. You break that flower off because all the good stuff is going into that flower. And this gooey, ooey, sticky, gluey stuff comes out and gets all over you. It pulls the hairs out of your arm. It's really, really yucky, but it makes the tobacco plant grow. It's the worst job you can have in the tobacco field, is suckering tobacco. But what it means is it brings life to that plant. So that's what it means when we talk about God as being a sucker. Not this kind of sucker we think about in modern day. Abdullah ibn Abbas. Once I was riding on an animal behind the Prophet when he said, "Boy, I would like to teach you something. Be careful and follow Allah's commands perseveringly. Allah will protect you. You should safeguard His rights, and you will always find Him with you. If you need something, ask Allah. And when you need help, so this is Allah alone for the same. Bear it in mind that if all the people combined together to grant you some benefit, they would not be able to do so except that which Allah has determined for you. And what if all of them were combined together to do you harm? They would not be able to do so except that which Allah has determined for you. The pens have been set aside, and the writings of the book of fate have become dry." So this actually goes back to the deeper essence of what I said about earlier. If we fear Allah and Allah alone, not what the world thinks about us or anything like that, then no matter what people try to do to us, if it's not Allah's will, it's not going to happen. And I'll share a story with you. When I was at Caledonia prison, not as an inmate, by the way, I want everybody to hear that loud and clear. I was a chaplain there. I was not an inmate. I was not in prison. There was a group of people called the Moorish Sites Temple of America. And they had taken over the Islamic platform. And I was a new imam there. And I thought, there's something sound really weird about what they're saying in their meetings. This is not Islam. And it'll be over my dead body. That's what I said to them. That you'll hijack my faith. So they said, well, we'll kill him then. So I was sitting in a meeting with these people, talking to them about Islam and the truth of the Islam. And this guy pulled out his knife and walked over and said, "I'm going to cut your," and he said a couple of choice words. And then he said, "throat." And I said to everybody here, just relax, guys. It's okay, because I'll die a martyr and I'll go straight to paradise. I am not afraid of him. When I did that, the correctional officer that was in the room dropped her radio because she was so freaked out. She thought I was nuts. And she said, "Well, what should I do next?" I said, "Nothing. Just take it easy. It's okay." And the guy was so shocked because I did not fear him that he didn't cut my throat. When everything settled down, I asked the control room, open this door, and I said, "Now you can take him out because he obviously doesn't want to be here. If he wants to be here, he can stay, but we got to get rid of that knife." They sent psychiatrists to see me because they said he has something wrong with him. He doesn't fear for his life. I said to them the very opposite, because I knew that the person could not hurt me unless it was the will of Allah. I was confident. And I felt the wise thing was not to upset him. So I just slouched down in my chair and said, "It's not a problem. If you slice my throat, I'm going to go pray to that." And that freaked him out and saved my life. Probably. Allahu Alam. I don't know if it saved my life or not. I just know I'm still here. And that's one of 4 times that people have tried to kill me because I was taking a stance for Islam. I think I'm a living testimony of this hadith. I do not fear people hurting me because I know if it comes, it was from Allah. It was written for me. Now, I'm not going to go stand in front of a train, folks, and say, "I don't fear Allah." Look here. Because that would not make a lot of sense. I'm not creating these events, okay? So I don't want you to get the wrong idea and become Superman. You're happy about that, right, Nathan? I'm not going to get it. Okay, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 276. Allah will destroy riba, usury, interest, and will give increase for sadaqah, deeds of charity, alms, etc. And Allah likes not the disbelievers, the sinners. So I want to tell you something, folks, that no matter how difficult things are for you, every time you give, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give back to you. And the best time to try that is when you think that you have nothing. If you really want to test God, the next time you think you have nothing, give away what you have and watch how Allah works in your life. You will get to experience the promise of God that's in this verse right here. Those who spend their wealth in Allah's cause by night and day, in secret and in public, they shall have their reward with their Lord. On them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. There's an R there, nor shall they grieve. So giving is something that actually opens the spiritual hose of blessings to you. As a matter of fact, there's a word, may Allah forgive me, I'm having a senior moment here. There's actually a word in Arabic for a miser, for a person that's stingy. What's it called? For a stingy person. Actually, this word, the root of this word means a constipated person. No, it's not that one. If you say it, I know, but... Oh.
No, I was pointing at Muhammad.
Muhammad, what's the word for a miser in Arabic?
Miser?
Miser. Stingy
Someone
person.
stingy.
That's great.
Imam Sykes, bakhil.
Bakhil, yeah.
Bakhil is one. That would mean like cheap. I
No.
would think. But there's several.
Anyways, if we'll just go with this, so we don't get off on a tangent on that too. We're interesting. We're just really good all over the place today. The Arabic word, and if you'll send me a text, I'll bring it up next week. The Arabic word actually talks about being spiritually constipated. So when you don't give, you actually become spiritually constipated. That means things are not moving, right? So, in other words, for things to move for you spiritually, you need to be giving. You need to be giving in deed. You need to be giving your money. It's like a principle. It's a spiritual principle. I'll share with you something interesting about that. And this is before I was a Muslim. When I was in South Africa, as many of you know, I did anti-apartheid work. I was the only trainer in the whole country, my partner and myself, that had all races in the same room. And we tried to give that training away because we wanted to be philanthropic. We could not give it away. When we started charging $350 for it, we couldn't have enough trainings. There is a principle that you have to give in order to receive. How many people know that principle? Absolutely, it's a principle of life. You've got to give in order to receive. If you don't give, it just cuts off that return. The likeness of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is as the likeness of grain. Listen, folks. It grows 7 ears, and each ear has 100 grains. Allah gives manifold increase to whom He pleases, and Allah is all sufficient for His creatures' needs, all knower. Now, I want to tell you this is beautiful because there was no corn in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Corn was a cultivated crop. It was actually a form of wheat. So this actually doesn't say it good enough, the translation. Because how many wheat buds are on a wheat stem? Anybody have any idea?
Like,
It's
lot?
unbelievable.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So if you think that the translators used corn to say that 7 years. In other words, if I take a piece of corn before the days of genetic modification and I plant a seed and I grow one corn plant How many ears of corn will I get from that one grain of corn? Several.
Yeah.
Wheat is exponential in comparison to corn. So what I'm trying to tell you is this verse, if you could know it in the Arabic, is mind-blowing. Because it's actually even far more impressive when you read this verse in the Arabic and you understand the Arabic. So again, that verse proves to you that if you give, you're going to get far more back. Abu Bakr ibn Abi Miriam reported that he heard the Messenger of Allah say, "A time is certainly coming over mankind in which there will be nothing left which will be of use or benefit save a dinar and a dirham." And a lot of people talk about this hadith, I'm not quite sure if it goes into this much detail. We are looking at the euro now, right? We're talking about the possibility that one day there will be one currency. And that currency will have its value dictated by whom?
Thanks.
Government?
One world
By
order.
government. The one world government. Allahu Alam. I don't know if that's what it means, but it's pretty powerful. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave the sadaqah without delay, for it stands in the way of calamity. So actually by giving, you can prevent calamity in your life. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? So giving should be part and parcel of your everyday activity. You're always looking for ways to give. Some people give money, some people give time, some people give their skills. We got somebody on the camera. We've got people in here that do our website. We've got people that give money. We've got people that come and clean the office. We've got people that come and clean the classroom before we get here on a Sunday morning and stay an hour later and clean it afterwards. We've got people that clean after all the iftars that we have. And clean before the iftars and set up the iftars. We've got people that donate the meals for iftar. So in all of that giving, this is another promise that it actually stands in the way of calamity. Yes, brother.
So with regards to giving, what are your thoughts on giving to panhandlers? So let me give you an example of what I do. So if I give sadaqah to the masjid, say if I get $10, I'd rather get that sadaqah to the masjid before I help someone else. But if I pay my sadaqah for the week and see a woman on the side of the road or a person, and I give that to my kindness in my heart, and I do that with the purpose of saying that I'm giving this to help them better themselves, buy something to eat or whatever. If they use it for alcohol or drugs, then that's between them and Allah or God. So
Here's how I handle that, though, brother. Sorry, I didn't let you finish. I don't give panhandlers money. I go and I buy them a meal and I take it to them. Because I don't want my money spent on alcohol. Yes, you could say I gave, and that's what my intention is to please the law. Yes, and that's right. Your intention was pure, and your intention will be rewarded. But I don't want to participate in the world of alcohol and drugs. I don't want my money to be soiled by that. So personally, now this is personally, I want to make that as a caveat. I will go and buy a meal that I would buy myself and take it and give it to them. I've even taken people that I've said, let's walk over here and get you something to eat. And you know what they say? I don't want to eat. I know what they wanted. Of course, I can tell by their eyes what they wanted. When their eyes are all red and everything, they're looking for the next joint. And when the pupils are certain dilated, they're looking for the next line or their next glass pipe. So I just take them and give them food. You can do what you want. Anytime you give, you're going to be blessed. But I sort of feel like I'm supporting them in their weakness if I give them money. Yes, brother.
I was just gonna add on because I in reference to the story that I gave, what I did yesterday, I did put like $20 in the bag, but then I thought afterwards, I was like, when they do use it for drugs, it's not only making your money dirty, but you're actually not helping them. You're actually doing them a disservice.
Yes.
Well, I see it a different way. I don't like to assume, and I always think about maybe this person has a family. If I just give him food, then what about the rest of his family if he has kids? So that's why I rather give money.
It's all in your intention. But in my field of work, I'm not assuming when somebody's breath smells like a brewery. In other words, when I'm talking to a guy and he smells worse than Anheuser-Busch, I used to live out in California near Anheuser-Busch, then I'm not assuming anything. I got a real clear understanding of what's coming out of his body. Because I almost get a contact high. So if I'm getting a contact high from one, I'm not going to give them money, but that's just personal. You're absolutely right.
So case by case, I would imagine, depending on the circumstances.
But I'm not gonna, I just rather give somebody food. If he then tells me I got a family that doesn't have food, great, I'll go buy a bag of groceries. But I just don't want to support any kind of chemical addiction. And that's just personal, that's just me. So, give the Zakat without delay. It stands in the way of calamity. But I want to point that out, it's like an insurance policy. Giving is like an insurance policy. And that's how you should always think about it. There are other verses in the Quran that if you give, Allah will not, if you give a loan to Allah, Allah is asking you for a loan, He will not forsake you. There's so many verses that I could have added to this. Allah's apostle used to say at the time of difficulty, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the majestic, the most forbearing. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Lord of the tremendous throne. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the Lord of the honorable throne. This comes from Sahih Bukhari. So sometimes when you're down and out and you are struggling financially, we begin to complain. And I won't go into this today, but when you complain, you actually cut off your spiritual life. Because over and over and over, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about being grateful to Him. We are supposed to be the people of shukr. In Arabic, when you do something nice for me, I say shukran Allah. Thank you. In the name of Allah. Shukran Allah. Shukr. So whenever things are rough for us, this is the supplication that we should pray. We should remember that Allah is the majestic. And Allah can give me everything. We ask Allah first. So what is zakat or alms? It is an obligatory act ordained by Allah to be performed by every adult Muslim. It is an important pillar among the five. It is an act of worship. It is not a tax. A lot of times, people will say that Islamic zakat is like a tax. It is not like a tax. Let me tell you. Yeah, I'm sure it's not like a tax. It is levied on specific assets only. It is identified by Islamic law as assets having the potential for growth. And let me explain that, what I mean by that. If one of these young ladies get married and their suitor gives them 20 ounces of gold, that's about 20-some thousand bucks right now. I'll tell you, it's actually $1,096.20 per ounce right now.
As of today, because it changes
That's
daily.
today. I'll show you. I've got the slide on what it is buried today. So you can do your math. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. So they say, oh, my husband, he gave me this beautiful gold. I can hardly walk tonight as I'm sitting up here before you, but I got my gold. And they say, I'm going to wear this gold to every wedding I go to because I want to bless my husband. He gave me all of this. I'm not putting on any pressure or anything with that. Just kidding. I'm going to wear this, then is that an investment? No, this is your jewelry. But one of these sisters really smart. She says, I'm going to put that gold in my safety deposit box. That's going to be my investment. Just in case he messes up. I'm going to have my little reserves. Changes everything, right? Goes back to what I talked about earlier in the class today. It's all about intention. If the intention is that this is an investment for my future, and every year you're going to see how to do it. I've got a slide on this. You're going to calculate, you're going to give 2.5% of the value of that gold. Make sense? Compulsory transfer of ownership of a portion of the property of the giver calculated at a rate of 2.5% to poor and needy Muslims who qualify to receive zakat according to the Sharia. Calculated according to the lunar calendar on the market value of the zakatable asset after deducting specified liabilities. Now folks, you have 1 year, so you have to keep up with that. In other words, if you got married on June the 13th, and you got all that gold on June the 13th, then zakat is not due on that until June the 13th of the next year. Or whatever same day it is Islamically. It should be on the Islamic calendar. But just to help you understand. Okay. So, a lot of people pay zakat in the month of Ramadan. Why?
The most blessings.
The most blessings. Very good. Because there's so many blessings in this month. People like to pay it in this month. But I want you to understand the Islamic principle is when you've had it for 1 year as a surplus. That is the truth of Islam. Okay? And Mason's going to pass around some envelopes for you to pay your zakat this year, but we're going to teach you how to figure it out. If you don't have it this week, you can bring it later.
I just want to separate it from the actual.
Because I have to, it's very hard. Let me explain it to you. There are 8 categories in the Holy Quran that give zakat. So I'm going to give an example. Anna gives $8,000 in zakat. I had to put 1,000 in each of those 8 accounts. And say, for example, this is the wayfarer up here. All right, I cannot give any of that $1,000 to another group. I have to look for wayfarers to give that money. Those inclined to Islam, the da'i, those in debt. That amount of money only can go to that area. I can't take from this one and give to this one. And I'm going to show you that from the Quran. I don't feel any pressure, okay? The literal meaning of zakat comes from zakaf, ya, is to be clean, to grow or increase. So anytime you're giving, the literal meaning of that giving is to grow your money, to increase it. Does not make sense from the 5 senses realm, does it? It only makes sense from the essential self. When you read it and you know from that center, that fitra that Allah breathed into your soul, then you don't have to worry about the mind. Because Allah said it, and that settles it. And that's what my heart believes, and that's what my heart obeys. So if you look at chapter 24 in the Holy Quran, you can write these down. Verse 1, verse 23. No, I'm sorry. 24:1 and 23:4. That's what I meant to put there. If you look at chapter 24:1 and chapter 23:4, you'll find a verse talking about zakat, and it means to be clean. If you look at Surah Baqarah, in verse 43, it talks about to pay the obligatory charities. If you look at chapter 19 and verse 19 and chapter 18 and verse 74, it means to be pure or innocent. So to purify your wealth, to become pure, part of becoming pure, part of returning to your authentic self, the fitrah of Allah, is giving, because that's why it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. What does zakat mean? It means to be better in purity. And here's some more verses. Look them up when you get home. Chapter 18 and verse 81. chapter 19 and verse 13. And then to justify comes from Surah 53 and 32. Zakat means all these things, folks. Does any of those definitions say that it means tax? No. Very good. Now I want to tell you something, folks, just to show you how we have deviated from Islam. Who will read this verse for me? I'm going to stop you and ask you to start over.
I will.
Okay, start.
Take alms out of their property.
Stop. What does this command say I'm supposed to do? It says take it, right? Actually, if we were operating according to Islamic, the way we're supposed to, I would be making a visit to each of your houses. And I'd say I came to as a blessing today so that you can continue to receive. And so that Allah can bless all that you have. And I'm here to help you figure out how much money you owe Allah. Well, imams are afraid to do that because we're afraid we'll get shot. But I just want you to know that it is a command from Allah that we're actually supposed to go and take it from you. We're supposed to go get it. Keep reading, Mason.
You should cleanse them and purify them thereby and pray for them. Surely your prayer is a relief to them, and Allah is hearing and knowing.
So actually, I'm coming to give you a spiritual bath, a spiritual shower today. I'm coming to get your zakat. That's the principle. But we all know that we've deviated so much that it's not safe for us. Sometimes people cuss us out when we ask for money. They always want money. Cleanse them and purify them. Take them back to that original state they were born in. Pray for them. Surely your prayer is a relief to them. And Allah is knowing. So by me actually going to collect it, and I'm doing the nearest thing to it, I'm just bringing it to you, then you can decide what you want to do with it. How many people in here know that I pray for everybody in here? When my wife and I travel, we go through the phone, and if we have your phone number, we pray for you by name. And we pray for everybody at Fajr. Not only when we're traveling, but we pray for you every day. Every single person that asks us to pray for them, and we have your information, we pray for you. Hadith narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's apostle said Islam is based on the following 5 principles: to testify that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is Allah's apostle; to offer the compulsory congregational prayers dutifully, not just ritualistically, and perfectly, to pay zakat, that is alms, to perform hajj, and to observe fast during the month of Ramadan. Those who hoard up treasures of gold and silver and spend them not in the way of Allah, give them the news of a painful punishment. So that's what I'm doing today. All of you who hoard up your money, never want to give anybody anything, this is what Allah says about it. Give them the news of a painful punishment on the day, when that wealth will be heated in the fire of hell, and with it will be branded their foreheads, their sides, and their backs. And it will be said to them, this is the treasures which you hoarded for yourselves. Now taste of what you used to hoard. Pretty powerful verse, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think I need to elaborate on that. Allah has strongly warned those who are negligent in paying their zakat. You know, folks, it's so amazing because the Baha'is pay 27% of their income. I'm sorry, 19%. The Christians pay 10%.
What is Baha'i?
Now, Baha'i is a deviation of Islam. It's a group that deviated yet. But that's how much they give. This is how much Christians give off the gross, folks. All Allah asks you for is 2.5% of your surplus. And He promises you all these rewards for just 2.5% of your surplus. I'm going to show you how to add that up in just a few minutes. On the authority of Ali, the Prophet said, Allah has enjoined upon rich Muslims a due to be taken from their properties, corresponding to the needs of the poor among them. The poor will never suffer from starvation or lack of clothes unless the rich neglect their duty. If they do, Allah will surely hold them accountable and punish them severely. Ibn Abbas reported a woman came to the Messenger of Allah and said, my mother has died, and fasts of a month are due from her. Thereupon he said, don't you see that if debt was due from her, would you not pay it? She said, yes, I would pay on her behalf. Thereupon he said, the debt of Allah deserves its payment more than the payment of anyone else. So when I've taught you in the past that if a loved one of yours dies, you are supposed to make up their fast days for them. Allah said that He deserves that more than the people that deserve their money. Powerful, huh? Most Muslims that I teach this to were not aware that if you do not fast, your loved ones are supposed to make that up for you. A complete year in the Islamic calendar should pass, starting from the very day of the nisab, an estate or property for which zakat must be paid. Possession, without any decrease below nisab during the year. In case of its decrease being less than nisab, and I'm going to explain what nisab is, zakat should be given as soon as possible after it becomes due. It is possible that death may occur and thus lead to failure in fulfilling one's obligations. If a person dies before paying zakat, then it must be taken from his or her estate. Pardon me? I'm going to explain. I've got a whole bunch of slides on this tab, okay? I will, if you'll email me, I want to rearrange this for next year, Mason, to put in this tab before. What are the important principles in identifying assets subject to zakat? Gold, silver, cash, and other items are subject to zakat. Any other assets will only become subject to zakat if it was acquired or purchased with the clear intention to resell. Anything that you buy with the intention to resell it, that is called an investment, and you have to pay on it. A Muslim will only be required to pay zakat if he or she has full and legal ownership of an asset. So you see that jewelry that you got in that safety deposit box? That's yours. Nobody has got a lien on it, right? K Jewelers doesn't have a lien on it. It's not like you owe K Jewelers on it. It's all yours.
So, what if it's in the safety deposit box just so nobody can steal it, not with your intention of reselling it?
If it stays there for a year and you do not wear it, regardless of what your intention is, it's money. But why would you, see, here's what I don't understand. Why would you not want to just give 2.5% to Allah? I mean, but you have to look into why. When we not want the blessing of giving. God has blessed me that I did not go into poverty and have to go sell some of my gold to live. And now I can't just give God 2.5%. That's how we have to think about it, you see. Otherwise, that's called hoarding. I'm hoarding that away. Ain't nobody gonna touch my gold. Yes, brother, you got your hand up first.
Two-part question. First, is it 2.5% of your net worth? And the second part is, do you give 2.5% on top of the zakat al-fitr that they collect from the...
I'm going to explain that. Thank you. Who else had their hand up? Yes, Sister Graham.
They said the jewelry, what do you say diamond, you don't pay for the diamond.
Not diamond.
Not diamond.
And this, hear me folks, because the law knows you can't fool the law. I go up to Diamond International, and I got an eye for diamonds. I got my little loop in my eye. I can see if there's any falls in that diamond. I'm buying that diamond just for a rainy day. What is that diamond in me? It becomes an investment.
You doggone Skippy on there.
See, you got to know your heart, folks. But you see, every year that I do this, people act like I'm the IRS. That's what you really steal. I love it. But I'm not coming to steal from you folks. You can give it to anybody you want to, but I'm coming to give you a blessing. I'm coming to purify you. That's how you should see it. And to teach you something that if you need to know. Who else had their hand up? Yes, sister.
401k, is that also?
Yes, because that is savings.
What about a car?
It's an investment.
Car.
I'm gonna cover all of that. If you'll bear, just do me a favor. If your question is specific to what's applicable, I've got that on the slide. If I don't answer it, then can we come back? Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. So, 2.5% out of the total wealth deemed for zakat. Nisab is the equivalent value of 3 ounces of gold, which is equal today to $3,890.10. That was this morning, by the way. I actually made this particular slide this morning to make sure I had the right figure. If you've got more of that in anything that's not an investment, that's been sitting there for a year, you owe Allah 2.5% of that. Here's how you figure it. Do you have $3,890.10 in cash savings? Do you have the same amount of money in stocks? Do you have the same amount of money in gold or silver? Do you have the same amount of money in business worth? Do you have the same amount of money in cattle? Do you have the same amount of money in assets? Do you have it in all of the above? If you answered yes to any of the above, then you should pay zakat.
For each one?
Well, I'm going to show you. So here's the way you add it up, folks. Take a pic. Get your phones out and take a picture of this. Because we've had, I think, yeah. So you add, you put on the first line the cash on hand from savings and checking account. Then from shares, stocks, futures, retirement accounts, including their dividends and returns, gold, silver, and their certificates, business net worth, total assets less liabilities, real estate except for your main residence, not your home, folks. But if you have a rental property or any other property other than your home, other industrial and farming assets, jewelry that is not worn, livestock, and then the net value of motor vehicles, RVs. And there's an exemption of 1 per driver. So my wife has a car, I have a car. That's an exemption. But in Islam, if I have 4 cars sitting in my driveway or 2 cars and an RV, that RV is considered a luxury. It's an asset. I've got to pay on that. Yes.
So a motorcycle account?
Motorcycle, yes. Somebody else had their hand up. Somebody else have a motorcycle? All right. So you add up totals from 1 to 9. You then subtract any outstanding debts. So for example, if I have $125,000 saved that I want to try to invest in something, but I owe $250,000. I'm trying to change my life. Do I owe money?
No.
No. So, line 10 times 0.025, everybody knows how to multiply 2.5%, right? Oh, sorry, yes, I'm supposed to be right here. This is what you need to take a picture of, folks. That's how you can figure it out. Make any notes that you need to on that. Now, any questions? Yes, sir.
What about like mortgage? If your house is still on the mortgage, it's not.
That's a debt.
So if your mortgage is, I mean, I'm talking about,
So-
your overall house probably would be more debt than what you have. So you're-
Absolutely not. You owe $250,000 on your house. But you got $10,000 worth of gold in the bank. Do you owe Zakat? No. Allah wants you to pay anybody that you owe money to before He gets any. Isn't that a merciful God? Isn't that a merciful God?
Yes.
But now remember, those debts have to be Islamic debts.
Now, see, somebody made a comment, well, then nobody pays Zakat because
That's exactly right. There are very few people in the Islamic world now, in the West, that can pay Zakat. However, you would be shocked if you knew how many people in this masjid's homes are paid for. Why? Because they grew up with these Islamic principles. They weren't reversed. But you'd also be surprised to know how many doctors in this community, with all these letters after their names, have more debt than you'd like to know about. They owe for their house, they owe for their car, and everything else. They're just one big pile of debt. They look real good on the outside, but the reality of the situation is they're just up to their eyeballs in debt.
I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to clarify, so if I owe $130,000 on my house, and I have maybe $30,000, what do I pay?
You don't. See, total from 1 to 9, subtract outstanding debts. You're in the red. Sister. That's what means me. You understand? But, I mean, alhamdulillah, are you ever going to give to Allah that you're not going to be blessed?
no.
No. Now, the zakat al-fitr is different, brother. And there's an argument about this, but just give me 1 minute. I hope I covered this. I'm not even going to go over the nisab table because this is who qualifies to get that zakat. And I don't know if you're really interested, you can see the slide. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, ma'am, I need some help," and it's one single person, and I'd say, "Did you make over $8,980 this year?" They said, "Uh-huh." I say, "I'm sorry, Islamically, I can't give it to you." It's nothing. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But
Exactly how they do, like for a school, like for lunch and stuff, exact amounts.
This is what Islam teaches. But look at the blessing. Really and truly, most of us don't have to pay. Yes.
Isn't that more based on the capitalist system, or just because we check out so many loans,
Absolutely, all of these loans. This is why I was saying earlier, why would you stress yourself and go buy a car that you got to pay interest on when you can buy a car with no interest? You have to look at the intention. Is it because of my ego wants to drive a specific car, or I want the blessing of Allah to have a car, and I don't want to participate in interest because I know the sin of interest. It's like sleeping with my mother, and I ain't into that. Anybody got time for that? Yes, sir.
Say you add up all your assets, your liabilities, and you're in the red. Can you pay anyway?
You can give always. Always, always, always. If you give 1 grain, it's going to come back to you up to 750-fold.
Never lose by
You
giving.
can never lose by giving. And that's why I spend the time every year, 1 day out of the year, teaching the beauty of giving. Yes, brother.
Are you able to go back a slide?
Yes.
If you can, I want to see something.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Who do you give to? Is it to your family, to the mom?
Now, ideally, you're supposed to give to, what's recommended is to give locally. However, there's a big argument, it's very controversial, because the Quran says that you always give to your family first. So, Zakat is a little different. But if you give to your family, it doesn't matter. The best, what you're supposed to do is, what did the verse say? We're supposed to go get it, right? So, the Islamic leadership in the local community is supposed to get it and deliver it. Now, there have been years in the past that I collected up to 8,000, right, man? And that money was delivered to the people that needed it. Now, I, being a person of, I hope, inshallah, sound mind, I look at the poverty level of the United States of America. I want to make this very clear, because I studied under a sheikh that taught about the fiqh of minorities. I personally don't believe anybody would qualify if we went by this. So I look at the poverty in the United States of America. And I look at the situation, and then we give to the groups. And if I'm wrong, I stand before Allah. Stand and prove before Allah, and I don't fear Allah. I know Allah is merciful. We've got single mothers in this community. We've got grandmothers raising grandchildren. And if I had to go by that Nisab table, we wouldn't be able to give the money away. Because I'm with you. That figure is, I mean, I want to share something about this, folks, while we're on this. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was past 11. I mean, 11 of the largest slums in the universe. You know where they are?
Feel it.
In Egypt.
What?
In Egypt. 11 of the largest slums, ghettos in the universe are in the country of Egypt. Such a rich country. Muhammad is here to talk to him about the poverty in Egypt today. A country where there are some of the richest Muslims in the world. And they sit and watch these slums. God forbid that any one of us would ever say that one of the members of our family were hungry. That is so heartbreaking for me. It's such a shame when I lecture in colleges, the social workers, and they know that one of the countries that is highly populated by rich Muslims has 11 of the largest slums in the universe.
That's pathetic.
And you know why? Because people don't pay their zakat. I want you to think about something, folks, and please forgive me for going past 1, because I've got another lecture. There is not another community I deem by Allah in Orlando that has a number of doctors that this community right here has. We have approximately 300 doctors that are members of this master. We have about 12 psychiatrists in this community. Not counting the lawyers, engineers. I'm talking about well-paid people. Yet, we have people hungry in our community. And that breaks my heart. That is just tears my heart up. Yes, sister.
Would you say, since loans aren't necessarily supposed to be taken out as concerned Quran, that the system of like giving money and getting money is almost like socialism? I don't want to say socialism because that has so much like wording or connotations to it, but a capitalist system causes you to take out loans. In a socialist system, that's where the money is distributed and everyone should live. You know, there shouldn't be any poor people. So would you consider this?
But in the reality, if you study the history of social systems of socialism, there were always poor people. And the governments, the socialist governments, the heads of those governments did not practice the principles of socialism.
Right.
Throughout history, there's not been a country that practiced socialism whereby it was all equal. So you're right in principle. I'm not sure. What I'm trying to figure out is where you're trying to go with this Islamic thing.
I wasn't really talking about in practice. I meant more like ideally. Would you consider this meant to be a socialist system? Is it
What, America? Oh no, America.
The US, as far as how the Quran breaks it down, like, do they want it to be?
No, the Quran actually promotes free enterprise. As a matter of fact, the Hadith tells people get into trade, and the best business is to take risks. Keep your money moving. That's the Islamic principle. So, no, the only thing Islam says is that if you are rich, you have a responsibility to the poor. So it doesn't say it's not socialist. It doesn't say, no, because you worked your behind off and you're rich, you got to live equally to the person that doesn't want to work. So what it says is that person that can't work, that's disabled, or that's insane, or whatever, your behind parts are responsible to take care of it. If you're a responsible Muslim. You see, this goes back to the very beginning of the class. It's all about your intention, folks. You see, you have to look at your ego. You have to look at yourself and what is your motivation. If I'm operating on Islamic principles because I love God and I'm giving to people because I love God, I'm feeding that essential self. But if I'm doing it to show off, and I want to tell you, I used to be a professional fundraiser. And people are always bragging, mashallah, we raised $350,000 every night. You know what I always say? Yeah, how much is in the bank? You know what they say? Oh, well, I think we should collect 50. I said, oh, so you raised $50,000. Because they don't ever see that $350,000. People will stand up, some of the people that look the most pious. They look like saints. And say, I pledge, I'm going to give $10,000 to this masjid's growth program. You never see it. That's ego, folks. That's what I'm talking about. If you're standing up to be seen of men, you're not standing up to be seen of God. So we have to look at our hearts. And I can tell you, my heart can't have it if somebody doesn't have food. As a matter of fact, Islamic principle, if your family does not have food and they come in your house and take food, do you know that's not considered stealing Islamic? This is an entitlement. Food is an entitlement. The United States of America has more grain in the bin. They have enough grain to feed every hungry person in the world. But because of greed, they're holding on to that grain. Because of ego. Because of the I. So I hope you understand the essence of this class is deeper than just trying to get a few dollars out of anybody that might have it. It's to teach you some principles, spiritual principles, about how to clean yourself and clean yourself, how to purify yourself, and take yourself back to that original state. Yes, sir.
I had a question because there was a conversation in my home, because I helped a person out, a single mom, to get back on her feet and stuff like that. But then my husband said I should have kept the money for a Muslim person. Does it matter who you help?
Doesn't matter who you help. Now, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to talk about Zakat al-Fitr next week, because I ran out of time. Zakat al-Fitr is specifically for Muslims to enjoy Eid. But this Zakat, you can give sadaqah to anyone you want to. This Zakat, one part of it is for those people inclined to Islam. So a woman comes up here today, or a man, disheveled, the axle broke in the parking lot, and they come in here and they say, brother, I want to know about Islam. I want to be a Muslim. Alhamdulillah. I've got a whole eighth of this money that is for that kind of person. We're the only religion that gives to the wayfarer. Somebody comes in here and says, I'm on my way to New York. I'm out of gas. People get ticked off. I've seen it. I've seen it over the years. But we got a fund for that. 1/8 for the wayfarer. You need a little food too, brother? Let me go down here to Slim Jim's Halal Market and get you a couple of sandwiches. Obviously not everyone at the Ramadan. Yes, sister. Last question.
I always, it's not a question, it's more of a comment to make off of what Kimo was saying. Anytime we give, I always think that Muslim or non-Muslim, but specifically for non-Muslims, that could be the one act of kindness that could be the seed that you plant that would bring them to Islam, that would help them to gain knowledge on who this person is that's just giving, that doesn't even know me, I'm a perfect stranger. So never ever think twice if it's Muslim or not. For me personally, I never question if they're Muslim or non-Muslim, because I always feel that could be the one act that could bring them to Islam.
How many people remember, some of my students were here when I taught on infaq fil mal. How many were here when I taught that class? Just 2, okay. There is a whole science in Islam about giving. It's called infaq fil mal. Islamic. Anybody in Arabic tell me what the literal of that means?
Like spending money more than you should spending?
Yeah, spending more than you should.
Gracious.
Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu.
Yes, yes. What is it?
He came and he gave all of his money to
Spend it.
Rasulullah.
Whatever it is, spend it.
And he was asked, what do you have for your family? He said, I have a highest message. He gave everything he had. And the other people were, well, what are you going to leave in your estate for your children? He said, Allah's message. That is the essence of infaq fil mal, when you give everything you've got to Allah. And that is the ultimate. Umar came and he gave half of everything he had to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He left half. So we have all kind of people. We have those kind of people. They'll do everything they can not to give one dime. And that'll be branded on their sides and their back and on their forehead on the day of judgment. And then we have those people that by the grace of God love God so much they can give it all. And then we have those people that love God so much they can just give half of what they have. And then we have those people that struggle like crazy to give 2.5%. And then we have to look at where we are. So I'm going to close now. If I've said anything to offend you in any way today, I beg you to forgive me. That was not my intention. I love you all for the sake of Allah. I just want what's best for you. I want you to shine in the face of Allah. I want you to experience your essential self. I want you to be all that you can be and all that you were when you were born was perfect. That's pretty powerful. And out of that springs the essence of who you are. So I want you to leave on that note knowing that I love you with all my heart for the sake of Allah. And I hope all of you will be back here next Sunday, same place, same time. Tomorrow night, we have an event. It is called the Interfaith Iftar. We will probably have about 50 people here. We'll have about 5 Buddhists apparently, about 45 Christians that are actually joining us today. And they're going to fast tomorrow with us. That some of them will actually pray every time we pray. And they will come tomorrow night and share their experiences and break the fast with us.
When is this?
Cameraman,
It's right here.
It's
So we can film that, I love it.
I got a perfect shot of it's good.
It'll be right here. We do it every year. We've been doing it since 2007. It's such a beautiful experience. If you can come, you're invited to come. Yes, hello.
So we meet at about 8 o'clock so that we can give them some instructions. A lot of them want to wear the hijab, they need help with that. And also we're asking for if anybody wants to bring a dessert. The masjid is providing the iftar and the food, but we can bring some desserts inshallah.
Okay, this is the event right here that's on the board. Sorry.
This is tomorrow. I'm now going to do Ramadan 101 at the church.
Okay.
What's on the board is for our Friday event.
Okay.
This is the Friday potluck. Not potluck where you don't have to bring any food. It's the iftar.
No, the event tomorrow is here.
Right.
And this,
Okay, so we have an event tomorrow here.
Yes.
At what time?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock tomorrow night.
And-
7:45 actually.
7:30 if you want to help volunteer to get stuff set up in case.
7:45 is what time we've asked people to get here because the fast break's at 8:22. At 8:15 we want to head over there. People got to find parking. We got to get the jabs on people. So the message that went out on the internet to the Christians was, we'll be expecting you at 7:45 to 8 o'clock. Because 8 o'clock's too late. You tell people 8 o'clock, they won't be here in time.
All right.
All right. Any more questions before we go?